Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bethany Thompson, and today I will be speaking about Marsha P. Johnson. Because of the work Marsha P. Johnson accomplished, there is more representation of transgender individuals, specifically impoverished and ethnic minorities. Have you ever heard of Marsha Pay It No Mind Johnson? Who was she? She was a transgender woman who lived on the street in New York City. One of the things she is most known for is starting the Stonewall riots. So there's a lot of stories surrounding how Marsha was actually involved with the Stonewall Rebellion. One of the most known ones is that she took a shot glass and threw it at a mirror in the Stonewall Inn, and that's how the riots started. I have this book here called Sylvia and Marsha Start a Revolution. And here you see a police officer speaking to Marsha. And the police officers came in and started trying to arrest people who were in the Stonewall Inn, which was a gay bar. So the police came in and they were arresting people. And here the patrons who were being arrested started fighting back, and they refused to be arrested by the cops, who at the time could legally just go in and start arresting people simply for being queer themselves. So what did Marsha do after the Stonewall Rebellion to further the LGBTQ movement? How did she bring representation to transgender individuals, specifically impoverished and ethnic minorities? Marsha and her friend Sylvia Rivera started Star House in 1970. STAR stood for Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. They started Star House in 1970 to help get the trans youth off of the street. So a lot of transgender people who were under the age of 18 were actually having to work as sex workers while living on the street in New York City just to survive. That's actually how Marsha and Sylvia Rivera met. Marsha was only 17 years old, and Sylvia was only 11 years old, and they were living on the street, working as sex workers just to survive. In 1970, the first Gay Pride Parade was held because it was commemorating the year prior, 1969, the Stonewall Rebellion. And the gay movement actually tried to exclude trans people. Well, the people at Star House, Marsha and Sylvia, said this will not do, and they marched in front of the parade. They said, we deserve to be included. You're not going to exclude us. Marsha was also an outspoken advocate during the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. She was a member of ACT UP, which was the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. She herself contracted AIDS in 1990 and was very outspoken about what was going on. She was also outspoken in 1992 against the violence being perpetrated against the queer community, specifically in New York City. So violence rose the summer of 1992. There were many people being targeted by the police, especially trans women of color, who even today are murdered at a much higher rate than any other people group. So Marsha herself died the summer of 1992. How did her death bring awareness to the ongoing struggle of the LGBTQ community? Her death was ruled as a suicide by the NYPD, but close friends didn't think her death was properly investigated. Following her death, there were many demonstrations and marches. Her death brought attention to the lack of empathy for the queer community, especially trans people and especially people of color. There have been documentaries made. One of them on Netflix is called Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, and it highlights her struggle and the need to reopen her cold case. After that documentary, her cause of death was changed from suicide to undetermined. This was important. Marsha was looked at as a gay saint or a queer icon. She's really a representation of the injustices that have been done to the queer community, specifically people of color and specifically impoverished people. So how do we sum up such a person? If it were not for Marsha P. Johnson, who was pivotal at Stonewall, who started STAR, and who brought attention to the AIDS epidemic, and who lived as her most authentic self, unapologetically, in a world that did not want her to, the world would not have the same representation for transgender individuals, especially impoverished and ethnic minorities, and we are still working on that today. Thank you.